Howdy folks, welcome back to the paint locker. So today we're going to be looking at a revolver, and this revolver is the El Patron Grizzly Paw 45 Colt, and this is what the old timers would call a smoke wagon. Look at the bore on that thing, yes sir, and it's loaded with flathead full metal jacket 45 Colts. It's a real smoke wagon. It's a go-getter. Okay, so they're pretty simple. It's simple, but revolvers are foul easy, much easier than the semi-auto blowback, because it's a wheel, what they call a wheel gun. And for you may not know, the reason they call it a wheel gun is the cylinder which holds the rounds spins like a wheel, just like that. And so, a little bit about this weapon. You absolutely do not want to have a negligent discharge or an accidental discharge with this thing. And the only way you're going to get that is by being just completely slap stupid and undeserving of firearms. However, it's quite simple. I'll show you. Here's how you unload it. It has a little door on the side. You open it up, and to get it to and to get the cylinder to spin, you have to go on half cock, and then the cylinder spins. And what you do is you turn it over and you dump the rounds out in your hand, and it will only spin clockwise. It will not spin counterclockwise. It's a 6-shooter, and see, there's the little door, dink and dink. And you can see there is a cylinder in there. I don't know if you can see through it. Yep. Okay. So now this weapon is unloaded. There's absolutely no way that this weapon will hurt you unless somebody whacks you in the head with it, or unless you pinch your hand in the hammer. And you count your rounds always, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because here in the paint locker, we're all about safety. You don't want to have a fire in the paint locker. And by that, I don't mean smoking a cigarette, I mean open flame. You don't want to miss a negligent discharge. It's not good, nobody likes it. So, here's the weapon. It should make 6 clicks. You have to half cock it to rotate the cylinder. Now this weapon is single action. That means you, with the hammer down, you pull the trigger all day long and nothing happen. However, with this weapon loaded, if you happen to drop it on the ground and it happens to hit the hammer, it's liable to go off. It's liable to just, and this is a real go-getter. Okay, so basically about this weapon, there's not a lot to it. So what you do, it has a button right here. You push that button in, you pull out the cylinder pin, right here, right under there. Whoops, and the cylinder drops out on the floor. And this is the cylinder. You can see 6-shooter, got 6 big holes, and they're numbered. You see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And you know, as far as that goes for the action, that's really about it. They don't recommend disassembling the hammer action unless it's messed up. And at that time, what you want to do is take it to a certified gunsmith. Okay, now the one difference between this and the semi-auto, I don't know if you can see it good, but this weapon has a hammer nose. This right here. And it goes right through a hole. I don't know if you can see it, that there's a, yeah, there you can see it. See that little hole? Let me get it around again. There, that right there. The hammer nose goes through that and strikes the percussion end of this round, okay? And this is the round. This is how big it is. Remember how the size of the ACP automatic Colt pistol? Well, this is called a 45 Colt. And it's not the weapon, it's the round. This is a 45 Colt, sometimes called a long Colt or Colt 45. And it's 45. It's a federal round. And look how long the brass is. That is all of the powder in it. And I mean, it won't go very far. I mean, it'll go a goodly ways, don't get me wrong. But it won't shoot like a rifle. But what it does hit, it's going to just decimate it. It's going to destroy it. It'll blow it into mincemeat. So, some features about the Revolver that you have to know is inside they have what they call the foot. And it is a little, very hard to see, but it is, let me get it right. Well, it's very hard to see. Okay, there you go. It's right here. And this is what advances the cylinder. See, when you cock it, watch. See that move? Up and down right there? That's called the foot, or the timing foot. And see, that's half cock, and that's full cock. Now you do not, you do not want to carry this weapon on full cock. It is just, oh, and also do not ever dry fire this weapon because you'll bust your hammer nose, your hammer tip there, that little tip, it'll bust off. And believe it or not, the foot that advances the cylinder is timed to the cylinder. So every time you go to full cock, it should advance past the cylinder it is on in a clockwise position to the next cylinder. A lot of people will carry these revolvers with an empty cylinder, or an empty chamber, under the hammer nose. That way if you do drop it, it's not going to go off, because you're going to have to cock it to use it. So if you've got an empty cylinder under the hammer, when you advance it, it'll go to the next one over, and you will get a live round in the chamber. And, you know, the old cavalrymen said a lot of them carried a rolled up bill in their gun to pay for their funeral. Well, that's a pile of crap. Nobody does that. These people spend money as fast as they get it. Nobody worries about their afterlife back then. Anyhow, this is 45. What you can do is, if you dry fire it too much and don't maintain it, it will, believe it or not, jump time. It will jump time, and at full cock, it will put the middle of between the chambers metal right under the firing pin to break your hammer nose off, and it'll jump time if you don't maintain it properly, because this is a machine. The other one's a machine, but this is a machine as well, but it's very simple. And as far as just maintenance, cleaning, you break it down this far. See, there's the barrel. There's the trigger mechanism. And you see that big hole is where the cylinder retaining pin, goes all the way through this cylinder right here. And it goes into right into the back part of the firing element. Okay, and this cylinder also has a little bushing in it. You don't want to lose this. That's very important. This bushing, it keeps this from rattling around, and it keeps your cylinder from jumping up and down. If you don't maintain it properly, and it will jump time on you. It will not fire. You'll hit between the cylinders and break your hammer nose off, and it'll mess it up even further to where when you cock it, it won't advance the cylinder. Now at half cock, it won't advance the cylinder at all. And to a degree, if you carry it with the hammer down on a chamber with the live round in it, it's liable to go off when it hits the ground, because it just will, you know. It'll drive that firing pin, which sits almost flush in here when the hammer's down. It'll drive it forward. It won't every time, and make the round go off. So the safest way to carry this weapon, you know, on the ACP you could carry it cocked and locked. Safest way to carry this weapon is half cock, because it won't fire. It's single action. That means single action means you have to cock it. SA. A double action means that you can either cock it or just pull the trigger. But this guy is single action. So for maintenance cleaning, you want to break it down this far. This is your brass extractor under the handle here, for those who don't know. This little thing. And when you push it, you rotate the cylinder at half cock, and it pushes out the brass, spent brass. Because usually the bullets will go in very easily But what happens is, when you fire it, brass being such a soft metal, it will expand the brass sometimes, and it won't just shake out. And I see these rounds that just slide out. And the thing is, it has a bit of a variance in there, but it's real close. I mean, these things are machined and tooled up properly. And they always have been, because your life depended on it. So this is a 6-shooter, the Peacemaker. This one is made by El Patron Grizzly Bear model. And yeah, you know, this is a spinning one, and it's fun to mess with and play with. You can practice your draw. Okay, and the reassembly, I'm sorry. I meant to tell you the spring for this. This is spring. It has a spring, but the spring is a metal tang inside the grips. On this iron frame here is hollow inside, and it has a curved piece of spring steel that makes the hammer come down when you pull the trigger. And so, you know, if your spring gets weak, it won't drop hard enough to fire off, or you may get a bloofer round. You just want to keep your weapons clean and maintained. And like I said, you can practice your draw. You can even do your fancy spins and all of that. And, you know, in your border shift. Border shift would be this one. Where you hand it to somebody like this. Here, take it, and you flip it over. You see that a lot in the movies, but it's really impractical, because what you'd have to do is, while you're flipping it over, you would have to cock it and then flip it over and pull the trigger. And I mean, if you practiced up, you could do it, but you see that crap in movies, and it's like, you know, it's not practical unless you're just some dirty old bushwhacker. So to put the cylinder back in, you open the door, put it on half cock. You put the cylinder back in, okay, and see, here is the timing gear for it, right there. See how that is rough and timing gear, in the front part of the cylinder is like that. And they put these cutouts in here to lessen the weight of the cylinder, and it looks like the bullets are pointing that way, but it's really going that way. So, to put this back in, you open your little door, you put your cylinder in from the door side, you have to put it on half cock or it won't go in. And you work it in there good, and it should click in. Then you take your retaining pin, and this is right under here. See right there? Well, let me get it where you can see it. Come on, light, work with me. It's right here. It's right here. It's a little hole, and you put this in it. And to get it to go in, you have to push that button again. Okay, see, now it's in. It's all the way in. It won't come. Whoop, it's not all the way in. Now it's all the way in. Almost made a fatal mistake, because with that thing not locked in, if I'd have fired this weapon, it's liable to shoot that little pin out, and the whole damn thing just blow up in my hands, because if it blew that pin out, there's nothing to retain it, and it's liable just to pow, woo, which is bad stuff. Okay, so this weapon is reassembled, but here's the spring. Of course, you want to make sure everything's well oiled. And if you want to keep your weapons from rusting, get you an oily rag and wrap them with it if you're going to put them up. Now, if you're going to use them and have them on you, just take them out every day. Handle them. You know, maybe put a little oil on your hands, but handle them. Make sure you know them. Touch it all over. Make sure you love it. And this weapon's ready to fire. Now, I'm not going to shoot it inside. I'm not even going to shoot it outside. But if this is the 6-shooter, 45 Colt. This is the one that made every man the same size. And it's a go-getter now. It's what they call a smoke wagon. It will, it'll blow some stuff up. Okay. And these are the rounds. Like I said, there's 6 of them. I always count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And here's how you load this weapon. You open the door. See there? You open the door. There's your cylinder. You can actually see through the cylinder. See? Okay, and then you just drop them in. Okay, oh, sorry, you have to put it on half cock, or you can't roll a cylinder. So you drop it around. Drop in your round. Go one click. Drop in your other round. Go another click. Drop in the 3rd round. Go another click. And drop in number 4. Drop number 5 and drop her on in there. And there you go, all 6. And you can check, you can roll it. And see, they're all in there. You shut your door, make sure that it is seated back to the left till it meets resistance. You have to pull the half cock just a little and drop the hammer. And then once you drop the hammer on this, you make sure that it ain't going to roll. Because if it is, for instance, let me show you. If you do it like this and drop that hammer and it's got play in it like that, that's not good. You want to make sure that it spins good. So you put it on a half cock. And this is single action. This is the one you see them in the shooting competitions nowadays and in the movies where they fan it. Where they go like this. Pow, 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 pow. Well, the way you do that is you hold the trigger down. And you fan it. However, it's not good for the timing to do that. But people do it in movies and don't ever, ever, ever take anything you see in movies or TV shows regarding the use of firearms as proper. It's not. It's movie crap. You should never fan it. That's just stupid. That's show-offy. What you should do, you should take your time. You know, if you're shooting a critter, dog running at you, or the Alamagusalum or old whatever, you take your time, thumbs forward, put your finger on it, then you cock it. See, with thumbs forward like this, you can cock it without losing your thing. However, this is a heavy weapon. If you had to hold it on somebody for too long, you'd start going like that because it just keeps getting heavier. And with the rounds in it, it's even heavier. It just keeps getting heavier and heavier. So, that's the 45 6-shooter, 45 Colt, Peacemaker, gun that made the West famous. And this is the one that made everybody, every man, even the meekest, scrawniest feller, the same size as the biggest man that ever walked. Right here, it made every man the same size. And it's like, yea, though I walk through the valley of death, I will fear no evil, because Sam Colt made all men the same size. And I'm not trigger happy, and neither should you be. You should never. They say, oh, if you pull a gun, you better shoot it. Well, that's wrong. That's misquoted. If you have the gun, you better be ready to use it without hesitating. And the thing is, you can't, when it comes down to that, you can't let your emotions play. You cannot get mad and win a gunfight. Nobody ever got mad, won it. You don't win it, because the person that wins a gunfight is the person that stands their ground and puts rounds on target. And that's the truth. You know, you can do a bunch of praying and spraying, and like you'll hear about some of these gangland drive-by shootings. 70 rounds were fired and only one person was injured. And it's like, well, now, how did they do that? And then you watch those videos and you see how they don't use stand your ground and put rounds on target. That's how you win it. You might get wounded, but the other man is, he's going to take the long sleep, you know, the forever sleep. So you should have a revolver in your home, as well as the blowback, semi-automatic, they call it. People will call it an automatic pistol, but automatic pistol is a machine pistol. That 45 Sig Sauer is a semi-automatic, which means it will recycle and rechamber on its own through the gases, and it has a spring that comes back. But this thing only has it doesn't really have a spring. It has spring steel in here that when you cock it, it puts pressure on it. So it's a very simple yet elegant machine. However, rough country, a lot of sandy dirt, with a lot of sandy wind blowing, it's going to foul it, man. Because it's got to spin. And it should spin like that. And that won't hurt it a bit. Okay, so what you do when you want to drop the hammer. This is the safest way to carry it, because it ain't going to do nothing. However, what can happen And this has happened to a bunch of people, is if you're carrying this thing and you're walking through thick brush and blah, blah, whatever and whatever, you can actually catch this thing on a vine or a branch, and it'll drop back to half cock. How about that? But if you're carrying it like this, and you let it go too far back, it's going to fall back on half cock every time. So it's a lot safer than other revolvers, in that some revolvers will, if you catch the hammer like that on a vine or something, if you're walking, it will drop down, and you know, and if it's not well maintained, it'll drop down on the ground and shoot you right down the leg, man. You better believe that hurts. That's why a lot of them carried their pistols like this, sideways. Is that border, that cross draw, is it kept the trigger from getting caught on anything. Plus, it's a lot more natural just to reach across. As you can see, your arm is almost fully extended, whereas if it's over here, you're up like this. And then you got to pull it up even further, unless you're going to carry it way down low. But the best thing is the cross draw on these big revolvers. This is pretty standard. It's got a slightly longer barrel than a service weapon would have had, since nobody uses them anymore. But this thing right here, this guaranteed faithful. And the cross draw is better, like I said, because you have your arm more fully extended, which all that means is that you're able to have enough arm left to pull it out without having to, you know, jack it up unreasonably and go into some kind of crazy posture. And you should teach your children gun safety. It's vital. I personally believe that every man, woman, and child in America should know firearms and be proficient with them. It's what made our country great, and it's what keeps us great, is mutually assured destruction. Greatest thing that ever was invented. You know, makes everybody real polite and keeps them at home at night. So anywho, that's the 45 Colt El Patron Grizzly. And it's a smoke wagon. It's a piece of weapon. It's not real light. Well, the rounds are heavy, and it's pretty heavy, you know. But it's all steel and wood. It's all steel except for the wood, and the rounds, which are brass, and the projectile, which is copper coated lead. Anywho, there you go. That's the 45 revolver. You should teach your children gun safety. When I was in the Boy Scouts at the age of 13, we learned rifle and shotgun. They didn't let us shoot sidearms, but there was a merit badge for rifle and shotgun, and they had a shooting range at the summer camps I went to, Boy Scout camps, usually run by these real crabby old veterans. Anyhow, they teach you how to gun safety, teach you how to fire and load, teach you what was safe and not safe. We shot 22s and 16 gauge shotguns for our merit badge. And hey, we're just 13 years old. But most Southern people, most Southern boys have spent a lot of time hunting or being around hunters and taught gun safety along with the grits and the gravy as soon as they pull them off the tit, you know, because you got to know. You got to know. You know, because the last thing you want is to find yourself tied up to an armchair. Really bad people ravish and torture your family. You don't want that. Don't do what they say. You keep your weapons, get you a couple of them. And what you need to do to protect your home is you have a point of last retreat. Safe place. You retreat into there, recover your weapon, and it needs to be somewhere where you can cover the door. And when they come to the door, start shooting. But retreat to your safe place. It's a whole lot of pistol now. This is worse than the ACP. This is a whole lot of pistol for a small-handed woman or child to fire, because it has a recoil, because in the automatic, the spring and the gases blow the top receiver back, which is quite heavy, and back in, and so it doesn't have much recoil because a lot of that energy is absorbed by the action of it recycling itself, whereas this one has absolutely No automatic spring in it. When it shoots, all of the force is transferred right down your arm. There is no force reduction because of any spring. I mean, it's like taking off from right there with no recoil, whereas the firing mechanism, whereas the automatic, the whole thing is, and that dissipates a whole lot of the energy and absorbs the energy. It has a heavy energy burden to be able to do that. And but this is a really good home. It's also a lot of fun. It's very traditional. In the state of Mississippi, you can carry this concealed or open with no permit. And everybody's real polite. And you know, you may say, well, I don't believe in guns. Well, guess what? They're real. An armed society is a polite society. If every man and woman was armed, there wouldn't be very many armed robbers, and there wouldn't be very many bank robbers. There wouldn't be any carjackers or home invaders. And, you know, it's like, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And the last thing you want is for your family to be at the mercy of some just nasty, brutish, animalistic, horrible people. The kind of people that invade your home. I mean, you know, those kind of people. And it's not some color of people, not some race or gender of people. It's people that do it. People invade homes. But this thing's very safe. It's fun. You can practice your draws. You can practice your pointing with it. It's fairly safe. It's always good, though, to keep your finger off the trigger. These range officers will go insane. The gunny will be all over your ass if you're walking around with your finger inside the trigger guard. So don't do that. So what you do is you just practice holding it. Practice holding it just like that. Thumbs forward. Never like this. Never anything but both thumbs forward. And that keeps your hand underwards like this and overwards like this. And you can cock it and still not lose any control of the weapon. And then people say, oh yeah, people will say, well, if you pull a gun, you better use it. No. It's much better to get the effect you want without having to shoot them. Yeah, you pull it on them. You show it to them. You pull it on and point it right at their head and tell them, I'll shoot you dead. And it's better to get the effect you want without firing. It's cheaper. Knowing them pesky police reports and all of that. Because, you know, they're going to shake you down if you shoot somebody. Even if it was a legitimate shooting, they're going to come try to run the weapon. They're going to look for every reason they can to bust you, because that's what cops like to do. They don't like people to usurp their power. But in Mississippi, very few people will attempt a robbery because they know it's going to happen to them. Home invasion, maybe it'll happen down towards Jackson or Meridian or down on the coast. But everywhere else in Mississippi, it's just not, it won't wash. It's not going to happen. You rarely hear about it. So if you live in the state of Mississippi or Alabama or Tennessee or any of the deep South states, arm yourself, man. Exercise your Second Amendment rights. Yes, sir. You exercise your First Amendment right. Exercise your Second Amendment right. Exercise your Third Amendment right. In other words, if they come and say, you got to let these soldiers sleep in your house, your Third Amendment right says, no, I don't have to do that. Unless you want to. But anyhow, that's the .45 revolver. This is a revolver. The semi-automatics are pistols. This is a gun, so to speak. And it's fun. It's a piece of cold blue steel. And it's a go-getter. 6-shooter. See them big old bullets in there. See. So, that all having been said, this ends our review and discussion of the .45 Colt Revolver, the Peacemaker, the Smoke Wagon, and next time we will get into some more esoteric weapons. But for now, from the paint liker to you, rock on.